Hello and welcome to Inside the Avatar Studio. Inside the Avatar Studio brings together innovative leaders from the virtual technology frontier to discuss their perceptions, perspectives, and predictions of what being virtual means in today's society. I'm your host, Kevin Feenan, also known in world as Phelan Cormel, and with me today is Chestnut Rau, an events writer for the popular blog New World Notes. Chestnut writes about interesting and innovative events happening within Second Life. Chestnut recently joined the musicians and art patron Zach Kale. Have I got that right, Zach?
Yeah,
I noticed Zach's
that's right.
That's right. And Amas, you're going to have to tell me how to pronounce the last name.
Amaze Levas. I don't know how to
Amaze.
say her name. But her first name is Amaze and her last name is Levasser. I don't know how to say it.
I love these Second Life names because they're just as bad as trying to pronounce French names because you never know how to pronounce them correctly.
I know, but all that changes now that we don't have prescribed last names, doesn't it?
It does, which is going to be kind of interesting. Anyway, so I mean, you guys are working on this thing called Art Screamers, and that's opening up at the end of this month, if I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
so anyway,
I'm kind of excited about it.
Very cool. So either way, thank you for coming onto the program. This is great.
Go
ahead.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Love these awkward introductions. They're always great. I'm wondering if you could just to start things off, because I mean I know a lot of the people in the audience here know who you are, but I mean that's just so then to give some context to the program and anybody else watching. I mean, could you describe for us a little bit about what drew you to writing about virtual worlds and Second Life in particular?
Sure, that's wow. So in 2007, when I came to Second Life, this was all mind-blowing and new to me, and I just couldn't really even believe what I was seeing and experiencing. And I was always one of those journalers, pencil and paper journal types to just try to make sense of things. And I met some people in Second Life who were bloggers, and I honestly, at that point in time, I didn't even know what a blog was, and but I met people who were bloggers, and I started to read what they were writing, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is how I can understand this mind-blowing thing, this virtual world called Second Life. And so I became really voracious blog reader, and I started to think, hey, I can take my little scribbles and maybe I could write a blog too. And so really at the beginning it was a way to make sense of what I was experiencing. And, nobody read what I wrote. It was a big day. I got like 5 hits, and I was like, that is so cool. And I would know exactly who they were, right? Because it was only the 5 people that I knew in the world at the time. And so I just kept writing, and then, there was fashion blogs, and there were people writing about all kinds of things, and I really had no interest in that. So I started to write a little bit about music. I was like, well, there's music in Second Life, and this is pretty cool. So I would go to shows and take pictures of musicians and just post them, and then that sort of progressed into writing about things to do, and eventually that led into New World Notes. So it's blurry. My voice is blurry, I'm told.
Well, your voice has become muffled a little bit.
I don't know why.
Oh, there we go. That's better.
Whoa.
There we go. That's better.
Okay.
Well, that's actually kind of interesting because that sort of leads into the next thing that I actually want to ask about, which was that, going through and reading some of the blog posts that you've got out there, I noticed a lot of what you tend to write about is this whole idea of introspection. And well, which is really kind of interesting because it's you've got this, and I was really having difficulty trying to sort out exactly what the question was that I wanted to ask you here, because there's a real and I'm still having trouble even trying to vocalize it here. But I mean, there's this real substance behind what it is that you're posting about that I'm finding anyways as I'm reading through this. So I mean, you talk about this idea of reaching out and pulling away. You have this idea of the development of trust in online relationships and of preserving our personal privacy, but it's all from this personal perspective.
Right.
And you know, at the same time, I mean, you mentioned that, you know, you like to avoid controversy, and part of which having to do with lack of a thick skin, right? To be that kind of a writer. But I mean, I guess one of the first things I wanted to ask is, well, what type of a writer do you see yourself being as part of this?
Oh, God.
As part of this exercise?
You know, back at the beginning when I was writing, I really, nobody read what I wrote, so I could just kind of spew whatever my emotion du jour was or whatever my thought process was. And, you know, there's only a couple people who were reading it, and they were my friends, and so I could be pretty open and honest about whatever it was, you know, and a lot of times it was silly stuff, you know, like some person TP'd into my house and left their sex pose balls out, and, you know, and I would, you know, my outrage and offense about somebody invading my space, you know, silly stuff like that. And then I sort of, emotion disorder. But then, you know, more people started to read what I wrote, and people I didn't know were reading what I wrote. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, this is the internet, and there are people out there who can judge what I wrote. So I started to pull back just a little bit, but that didn't really feel right, because the reason that I was writing was to express myself. So there was always a tension between saying what's on my mind and not, I'm sorry, I'm getting emails about how my voice is being muffled. I'm trying to hold the microphone closer to my mouth. Is that any better? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's doing the same thing on the first stream. It for some reason,
I don't know. You know,
now now it's back.
That's really weird, because I haven't done a thing. I'm just gonna hold the microphone closer to my mouth and hope that that's better. So let me know. You guys are doing.
Okay.
Letting me know if it's not. Okay, so now I've lost my train of thought, but I have a microphone. So there's a tension between being a writer who wants to write about their personal experience and being self-protective, because, you know, sometimes I've written things and been quite personally attacked for what I've said or done, and that surprised me. You know, I don't know why it surprised me, but it did. I was like, oh my God, it's the internet, and I'm writing about me, and people are criticizing me. Oh my God. And so then I would write about, you know, what can I do today? And that didn't really feel right either. So what kind of writer am I? Confused?
A confused one, okay.
A confused writer. I don't know how to answer that question any better.
Well, no. That's okay, because it's interesting. I mean, you've got these very interesting concepts where you're talking about this waves of, and I don't know if it's emotion or just a plain feeling, but where you talk about this idea of, you know, this cold feeling in your stomach versus, you know, association with colors and sounds in your mind and what have you. And it's I realize it sort of sounds weird to people when you actually vocalize this and you put it on paper and what have you, but at the same time, it's also one of these things that I think a lot of people with inside virtual worlds are trying to capture in terms of why they are so enamored with the possibilities of things that go on here. And while part of it has to do with the technology, I think part of what you're capturing is this other part that has to do um, with the artistic beauty of what it is that we're doing here, and I don't know if that's part of the direction that you were thinking of or not.
Absolutely. I think the best way I can say it is this is, I just started writing for myself, get it out there. And then I started looking around the blogosphere. And, there's people who are highly analytical and technical, and they're writing in-depth analyses that talk about the viewer and what Linden Labs should be doing or not doing. And I didn't really feel like I had much to add to that debate. I'm not a technical person. I don't really know what the future of virtual worlds is. So I didn't really feel like I could insert myself in that conversation in a meaningful way. So that wasn't going to work for me. Then, there's people who are true artists who are writing about art, and I'm not really educated about art. And, so I can say, oh, I love this work by Miso or by somebody else, and I can tell you why I like it, because walking through it makes me feel something, or seeing it makes me appreciate the colors of the artistry or whatever. So, just the only thing that, in looking around the blogosphere, the only thing that I felt like I could add to the debate was me. The only thing I can really talk about with any clarity and any certainty is myself. And if you look around, there aren't that many bloggers who write about the kinds of things that I do, because I think, I don't know, maybe it's not that interesting, or maybe it's, I think it's hard to say, hey, this happened and it made me feel that. Not everyone wants to do that out there on the big bad internet. And somehow I've found myself doing that. And like you said, sometimes it's uncomfortable and sometimes it's terrible, and other times it's the most rewarding thing that I've ever done.
Do you find it's more rewarding talking about these particular types of concepts from a personal perspective rather than, I guess, sort of from the third person perspective? I mean, a lot of people tend to write in terms of, this is what I observed, and you tend to write in terms of, this is how I feel.
Right.
It's a very interesting. It's almost. It's almost erotic in a way, and I'm using that term a little bit tongue in cheek, but I mean it's sort of, it's you're allowing us. It's like you're writing inside your personal journal, and you're allowing us to look over your shoulder as you're doing it.
Right, exactly, and like I've said, I mean, I started out, it was a personal journal, and in many ways it still is. But why is it that I don't observe from the third person? And I'm going to go to my real life, and maybe that will give you a little bit of insight. I actually work at a university. I'm an administrator at the university in New York City. And so I work with academics, and I work with people who study things from the third person in very scientific ways all the time. I'm not, I guess maybe I feel ill-prepared to talk about virtual worlds or the experience of being in a virtual world from an observational or an academic point of view, because I'm none of those things. The only, I always say to my blog, I'm a mom. I'm a mom who happens to like to, as my kids say, play that computer game. And the only thing that I really know is what I experience, and so that's how it comes out of me. Can't really explain it any better than that.
No, it's quite all right, because I mean it's a very, like I said, I mean there's a there's all kinds of books and articles and what have you that are out there that are sort of written from that perspective as well. But I mean it's very it's very intimate in terms of the way that you approach things, which I think is why a lot of people who read your blog and read the things that you write about, and actually in some cases don't even write about. I noticed that a number of your posts are just simply no description, just this is what I saw today, and give people an opportunity to go and to check those particular things out. Right?
Well, it's interesting. For a while there, I had gotten I was feeling a little emotionally vulnerable and beat up because of things that I had written that were sort of personal. And so I took a step back and I was like, oh, forget this. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just going to, share landmarks. Let it go. Okay, here you go. Here's a cool thing to do. I got it, people. And then it really was of interest in my blog because it was sort of boring to me. Like, I don't want to be passing along landmarks. That's not...
Okay, you're going to have to hold up for a second just because the sound just completely cut out for us. So
Really?
Okay, there we go. We got it back.
Okay. Are we good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
So, for a while there, I sort of pulled back, and I was just posting landmarks. Here's a good place to go. Here's something to see. And that got boring for me. It wasn't interesting. And then I sort of got back to my roots, if you will, which was, what am I feeling? What am I doing? And people respond to that much more, and it's a lot more fun. So that's what I've been writing about. One thing, though, I do, this is a weird thing that happens to me all the time. Because I write about things personally, there's a lot of people who think that I write about everything that happens. And by reading, some blog posts, and there's probably 1,000 of them now, but I think they know me. I think they have this clear picture of who I am. And is it better? Can you hear me now? It turns sound down because the Skype voice is coming over, but I think you can't sound.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's doing it. Just it seems to get better when you stop for a second and then start.
Okay.
See, there we go. Now we got you back. So it may just be something with your ISP that it's.
I apologize.
That's okay.
Anyway, so the downside of blogging about things personally is that people think they know you, and that can be a little bit off-putting. I'll walk into a place where I really don't recognize any names, and people will be like, "Oh, Chestnut, hi, I read you." And on the one hand, it's complimentary and it's great, but on the other hand, sometimes it's a little weird
to run into that situation.
Yeah.
Well, I guess even you mentioned this inside your blog post, is that you tend to like to be a private person, although this is a very strange way of being a private person.
Well, it's not so much private. I wouldn't say. I actually probably overshare. I think I would describe myself as an introvert, which is to me different than shy. I'm not shy, but people kind of can exhaust me. And I actually think there's a lot of people in the Second Life and other virtual worlds who are introverted because you can control the social interaction on your own terms. You can be social when you want to, but you can not be social when you don't want to. And that's, I think, different than private. Private is, I'm not going to talk about my husband when we had a fight last week over who did or didn't wet towel on the bed, Some things are different. I don't know. People are saying they can't hear me at all.
Yeah, it's doing something very, very strange. I mean, you start off loud and then it just sort of trails off, and then you stop for a second, and then it all comes back. So
I don't know what to do.
Yeah, Lauren's saying she can hear you, but you're in Latin.
She said, Lauren said I sound like a Miro.
The well, I mean, it is kind of interesting because I mean, a lot of bloggers do tend to put a lot of themselves into their blog posts and what have you. I'm wondering whether or not, I mean, you mentioned on, again through your blog that, part of the thing about blogging is that you want to be known, or more to the point that you want your ideas to be understood,
Right.
and that there's no greater annoyance than to be misunderstood, and I can fully and totally sort of appreciate that. I'm wondering, do you feel that virtual environments, whether they be Second Life, Facebook, whether they be a blog, Twitter, what have you, it really doesn't matter. But I mean, all these different virtual environments that we have, do you feel they help us or they hurt us with regards to trying to be understood? Um,
Who?
and
Um.
I'll give you an example because I mean, the to a certain extent, we have a large quantity of ideas and opinions, but are we really communicating more? Are we really being understood more as a result of this?
Wow. That's a really good question. Are we being understood more or less because of virtual worlds?
Or,
Wow.
or more to the point, do you feel that you're being understood more as a
Well,
result of the writing that you've been doing?
I think here's what I will say. It's a great question, Grace. I agree. I think that um, hmm, for people who know me really, really well, the people who are in my life every day, I don't think it adds or it doesn't really change whether I'm being understood by them at all. You know, and honestly, those are the people that I really care about understanding me, my friends, my family, my Second Life family, my close associates. So I'm not sure that, the writing that I do has much impact whatsoever. But it's those other people, it's some of the people who are here in the audience today who I know, but maybe not as well as my closest friends. And does it help them to understand who I am as a person? Probably. Probably, I think so. But I think it probably can give a false sense of understanding the full and complete me, whatever that is. Our virtual worlds helping. I mean, I guess I would answer it this way. I think that virtual worlds give us a creative platform to explore who we are. So if you're an artist or you're a musician or you're a writer or you're a comic, like Lauren, or whatever it is that you do, the virtual world that we live in gives us a chance to explore who we are, and if that helps us to be understood, um, then that's great. It's a great thing. I don't know. That's not really a direct answer to your question, is it?
It's not, but it's your answer, and that's that's what this is all about, right? I mean, it's interesting because I mean the whole aspect of the way different people. Lawrence just approved of my comment here. Great. The 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 whole way people approach virtual worlds, and I guess to a certain extent, the way I look at this is it's sort of a mirror of life in general in terms of how do we live sort of the rest of our lives, and the different perspectives that people bring to this are as varied as the number of people that you meet inside this environment. Um, so I mean, like we were talking about before, there is no right or wrong answer
Right.
to any of these things. I mean, it's
But you know what? That's exactly why the only kind of writing that I can do on my blog is this is what I think, because feels so presumptuous to me to say this is how it is. To make any kind of broad statements about how Second Life is or should be feels so beyond anything that I'm in a position to assert. The only thing that I really can say is, this is me. This is what I experience.
So is there anything that, because I noticed you'd mentioned this a couple of times in your blog writings, that you said that you don't like controversy. But yeah, I'm quite sure there's probably a few things inside this environment you've probably sat back and just said, "Ooh, if only, why didn't they do this?"
Yeah, I tried to use in-worlds, and I got really frustrated, and I said, this just doesn't work. And oh my God, you would think I had said that we should kill all the puppies or something, because people went crazy. That's the kind of controversy that I don't enjoy. But, I certainly, I've gotten really, really mad at Linda Lab. No, I would never kill a puppy. See, that's it. Now there's going to be a headline somewhere going, Chestnut Rau says we should kill all the puppies, and the furries are going to come after me.
No. We already know that that's your husband's role. He looks after the corpses. Right?
I did say that, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
Oh my God, that's funny. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, I don't get into. First of all, I'm not a big fan of bashing Linden Lab, but yeah, do I have private conversations with my friends about how much this or that policy makes me insane? Sure, of course, but that's not something that shows up on my blog. Why? Well, I think maybe because there's a lot of people who are writing about some of these issues more from a more informed point of view than mine, so I don't want to insert myself in that debate.
So as part of the creative effort, because obviously there needs to be some separation between. And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to make a little leap here, and if I'm completely off base, then feel free to smack me up the back of the head with a cod. I get the sense then when you talk about this sort of started off as personal journaling, and then developed into some. Sorry, Dirk just smacked me up the back of the head here. Developed into something more, that at a certain point in time, you made this determination in terms of how much of your journaling would actually be public facing, and I'm assuming then you've got other journaling that you do, which is private, strictly for you, that you don't share with anybody else.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, I think every blogger has those posts that you write and hold, and I have plenty of them. The ones where I think, oh, this is going to make somebody upset, or this is one where I just feel a little bit too vulnerable, and I'm not going to post that one. Or, people read a lot into posts sometimes, like they think they know the events or whatever that caused you to write about a certain thing, and often they're wrong. And so sometimes if it's going to be either something that will make somebody think that it's about them, I try not to write things that are going to, hurt other people's feelings. But yeah, sure, I write stuff on my own. I've thought a lot about doing a real life blog about things that are not virtual, and I've shied away from that because I don't want to write things about my kids that will haunt them. There are a lot of mom blogs out there, but I don't want to do that.
I know we were just talking a little bit about your kids and being teenagers. So I mean, anything at this age will haunt them, right? I mean, that's just the nature of being a teenager.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like,
The whole, my mom is in Second Life is not something that they're talking with their friends about. No,
really?
definitely not. No.
very, very strange. I mean, they're not
No.
reading your blog and getting as much out of it as the rest of us. I'm surprised. I'm shocked, really.
No, no. No,
Um,
they don't. No, they don't.
yeah, standard teenage fare. You know, we were all the same at that particular time. The
I think
the you mentioned something very interesting, um, and I'm going to read a small quote here. You talked about many of your closest friends from Second Life are people you rarely, if ever, see in world.
uh-huh.
And you say that, I talk to them all the time via other mechanisms and feel as close to them, if not closer in a few cases, to my real life friends. Second Life has become secondary to your friendships rather than the primary means of being together. It's that whole passage struck me as very, very interesting, and specifically this idea in terms of the transient nature of friendships that we develop in real life, and how virtual environments tend to be a little bit of a mirror for this thing. So when we talk about friendships in virtual environments, why do you suppose it is that we feel drawn and then withdrawn from these environments that were so instrumental to developing those friendships in the first place?
Wow. It sometimes it's just time zones and the availability of people to be in world at the same time that can be difficult. So some of it's that. Some of it is technical um, problems. Sometimes it's just easier if that Second Life is being cranky or crashy. Sometimes it's just easier to talk on Skype. I mean, why are we recording this show over Skype and not over Second Life Voice? Because up until recently, anyway, Skype has been more reliable than Second Life Voice. So sometimes
Yeah,
those technical can be a pain in the neck.
yeah, right until we turn the camera on.
Right, I know, right? Well, I think we figured out what was going on with my voice, but in Skype. But I did write that paragraph about one person in particular, and in the case of my friendship with that person, it's 100% related to time. That person is a friend of mine who tends to be on very, very late at night, and with kids in the house, I'm up early and out. So we tend to chat on, on G Talk during the day. As we're going through our day, we'll be in IMs. But, I think I've written a bunch of times about the potential for what's the next thing, right? We're all in Second Life now, and we love Second Life, but it's not going to last forever. Even if it does last forever, there will be the next place. And how do we all end up finding each other wherever that next place is something that I have thought about.
Well, and that's what I was sort of curious about. Was, I mean, in terms of your insight, in this aspect of life lessons in having developed friendships through here. I mean, have you learned things about the way your friendships develop as a result of being here that you never noticed in real life, or never noticed through other mechanisms of meeting people or engaging with others?
Absolutely. This is part of being an introvert. People, how do I say it? I'm not an easy person to get to know. Because people are in my face, and I tend to shrink and just be the introvert, quiet person, and on my own. And one thing that I have noticed is that because Second Life allows me to control that social interaction, so I can, when I'm up to it or wanting to have contact with people, I can, and when I don't want to, I can be off on my own, and that works. So I think that Second Life has actually helped me to figure that out about myself. I've never really realized that
the reason that I'm different than a lot of people in my real life is because I'm just an introvert. You know, we're different than the rest of the extroverted people who want to be around thousands of people all the time. They just need to be quiet. Oddly, I reached however old I was, and I'm not going to say that number, but, you know, getting to be an adult and not really having that basic knowledge about who you are as a person. Second Life helped me figure that out. How weird, but how very true. Exactly. Somebody in the audience said that I'm the introvert who was Hamlet's social events person, which is kind of interesting because Second Life makes it easier for introverts to be social, and that's exactly 100% true. And, you know, there are people in my day-to-day life who, the idea that I would be the person who was saying, you know, here's all the social events that you should attend, they would laugh. They would laugh because I might know where all those social events are, but I don't really want to be at the fireworks on the 4th of July surrounded by 500 people. I want to watch something like
My patio.
You don't want to be at the 4th of July. Oh,
I don't.
I'm sure every American out there is sitting there going, what?
No, I want to see them quietly from my patio. not surrounded by thousands of people, but that's the introvert talking.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's different. I guess to a certain, I mean, because everybody's got this I guess sort of dichotomy to them where they have I guess extrovert qualities and introvert qualities, and it's just a question of how much of one versus the other tends to assert itself in I guess a lot of social situations. Do you feel that there are, you know, if we take a look at this from one side or the other, I mean, you're calling yourself an introvert. If we look at it from that particular perspective, do you feel that there are life lessons in here that you or others really should be taking away from this in terms of what, I guess, sort of what the benefits are, or what? I'm not even quite sure how to term the question here. I mean, one of the things that I find is that as I meet new people, they give me the opportunity to self-examine things that I do, and to a certain extent be able to say what's wrong with this picture. what have I screwed up today? And by doing that, it's sort of like, oh, you know something, if I did it this way, I might actually be able to, you know, have better conversations with people, or I might be able to, you know, be not as much of a klutz in social circumstances, which I fully admit to, you know, that quite often is me. And I'm wondering if what you're finding the life lessons are that you found after, you know, having been here now for 4 years.
Life lessons. Well, I would say the biggest life lesson that I've learned for myself, and I think that it was an important, really important lesson for me to learn, is that that I can be a creative person. You know, I always was one of these people who wanted to have a way to express myself creatively, and I always felt like, well, you know, I'm not a really good artist. I was a dancer. I was a good dancer, but not a great dancer. You know, so I always had these things that lots and lots of ways that I wanted to express myself artistically, but I never really found that one thing that I felt entirely comfortable with. And I think that one of the life lessons that I've learned about Second Life is that, you know, you can use different media and you can explore yourself, and it's all good. You know, just dive in, take that project on, and explore it for what it's going to teach you, and then move on to the next thing. And so it's been, Second Life really has allowed me to think of myself as a creative person. I'd still refuse to use the word artist, but, you know, maybe one day. So that's a life lesson for me. Is that a life lesson for other people? No.
No, but
No,
you
but
know,
it's personal. But I mean, I wasn't really. We had sort of said it tongue in cheek, but the more and more I've been reading through your writings, I've been finding this idea of social artistry
Mm.
really does sort of apply to the way that you've been approaching the media between your writing and then what you've been doing in here and the groups that you've been working with and the other um, pieces of art and music and other things that you've been sort of exposing people to, through your blog postings. And this is, it's one thing to go out there and to try to say to people, you need to pay attention to this because I'm marketing this particular product or this particular service or this art exhibit or this music group, and therefore everybody needs to show up. And it's another thing to have almost that innocence about the way you're approaching your writing, where people can look at it and feel that something, this is real. And somebody else mentioned this earlier on. I mean, your writing feels real in terms of what's there. It doesn't. There's nothing. We're gonna have to beat up Lorian afterwards. I'm sure of it.
Right.
But I mean, it's one of those,
what's really weird?
It's natural.
Well, you know what's really weird, and this is going to sound all crazy, but we're having an open conversation here, so I'll just tell you a little bit about how some of those blog posts come to be. And I think I wrote about this a little bit on my rezzed this past month. Sometimes I'll be just doing whatever it is I'm doing, and a post, or an idea or some words just poke their little heads into my mind, and I'll be like, oh my goodness, I better write this one down. And sometimes when that happens, I'll call it your muse knocking on the door, whatever. I'll just sit down and start typing, and a few minutes will pass, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, look at that. And the process of putting a post together, especially some of the ones that seem to have touched people the most, the ones that I read back and I go, oh my gosh, I can't really believe I wrote that. They almost come from an external place. It's not like I'm, doing an outline and saying, first I'm going to cover this idea and then I'll move to that idea. An idea comes to me, I sit down, I type, and it's almost like it comes from, I don't want to say someone else because it's clearly me, but it's very pure. That's all I can say. Like the one that I wrote on my rezzed, I literally was fast asleep and I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning and this post was there. I was I have to get up and write this now.
Oh, you gotta love the 4 a.m. posts. I've had a number of those.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it happens. It happens that way.
It does, and I mean, but it's so interesting because I mean, one of the things that I like about the blog that you've got is, it's quite obvious, or at least I think it's obvious, and so I'm not going to make the assumption that I know you, so I'll try not to make that assumption right in front of you.
You see?
I'm learning. You see, it works. But it's interesting because I mean you've got this very natural expression for art and for people who like to express, especially what you call immersive art, right? Not a matter of going in and seeing a 2D picture, but things that you can, like Robbie Dingo's. I'm assuming you've seen that thing from Robbie Dingo in terms of Watch These Worlds. That whole idea of being immersed inside a picture rather than just sort of looking at it.
Exactly.
Are you finding that because you've posted a lot of stuff on here, and while you haven't talked a lot about it, I mean, just to go through your blog and look at the pictures and the imagery and what have you that you've got on there is just a a pure, it's worth going on there just to see all the different things that you've seen on here and the different pieces of beauty that you've seen with inside this environment in of itself. Do you find that virtual worlds are starting to fulfill a promise that these types of environments really are going to change the way that we're going to, I guess, sort of see and express ourselves? I almost want to say see and express beauty, but I mean that's probably taking things a little bit too far. But there was sort of this promise that this was going to change the way we think about things.
Yeah, I I can say this. This is classic Chestnut. I can say that it's changed the way I think about things. Am I going to sit here and tell you that this is going to change everything? I don't know. I really don't know. I do know that there are amazing artists who are creating things in Second Life and other virtual worlds that they can't create in the atomic world, where we have to contend with things like gravity, and I think that there absolutely is a whole world of three-dimensional art, like miso. Starter says like miso, exactly. And I think there's a whole world of new art that is happening now, and will that continue to progress and evolve? Absolutely. I mean, I am thrilled that we have that opportunity. Which is a perfect segue to talk about Art Screamers for a minute, if I could. So Zach, Cal, and Amaze and I have a sim called Art Screamers. And our idea is we want to scream about this art that makes us so excited. And we want to share with folks just the amazing creativity that we see. And the way that we're going to do this is we have this full sim, and we will be asking some of the great Second Life artists or offering them the opportunity to have a full sim to build on. And then we'll be opening to the public, and people can come and enjoy the art that we're so excited to share. So we will hopefully be opening at the end of July. The first exhibit is by a very well-known artist who I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say his name.
Oh, go ahead.
Cliff Graves is going to do the first exhibit, and he's building now, and it's fantastic and amazing, and I can't wait to open, and you'll definitely be hearing more about that. So to me, it's sort of a natural progression. I started way back in 2007 and 8 writing about, hey, I went to this concert, you should go listen to Grace McDonough because she's awesome. And then I went over to New World Notes and sort of started saying, here's the 30 things that I would do this week if I wasn't an introvert and staying home in my skybox. And now, now that I stopped writing for New World Notes, I've moved on to this new project where we will be bringing art to the grid. And another musician, because I just plugged Grace, you really have to listen to Zach Cal as well, because he's an amazing vocalist and a wonderful, wonderful piano player. So
Bevan drags me out every single chance she gets.
Yeah.
As soon as Zach starts playing, she's like, "Oh, everybody's got to go! Everybody's got to go!" So, yeah, I know.
Chrono Cloud just said she wishes I was still writing for New World Notes, and thank you for saying that. I sort of glad to be done writing a post every single week with a deadline. It was hard to do that for 2 years, but thank you for that compliment. I appreciate it.
This idea of art and growth through art and what have you. I mean, obviously you've spent the last 4 years, seeing a lot of different things that have been going on. Have there been some projects that you've seen that have been really exemplary?
Oh,
The last
so many, so many. Amaze owns a sim called Originalia, which she has just fantastic exhibits over there that are all original, hence the name Originalia. And she's just closed now to change out the exhibits there, but Scottius Polk did an exhibit there called The Docks, which it was just one of my most favorite exhibits that I've seen in a really long time. Scottius does all his own textures, and this build was big and blue, and there was a little house and a dock and water and creatures, and it was really a wonderful place to sit, and the build made me feel, like viscerally feel cold, and it was the place where you could sort of steep yourself in loneliness, which maybe is something that would only appeal to an introvert, I don't know. But that build was just fabulous, and I heard a rumor that it might find a new home, and that would be really awesome if it did. Let's see, Tree of Trees. Sora Nishi did a build called Tree of Trees that was, I believe it was on an IBM sim. I could be wrong about that, but that was another one of those incredible builds. It was colorful and huge and could fly through it, and it was just wonderful. I loved that one as well. I think that one's gone now. It was, Hydra says it was at IDIA Lab Sim, not at
not IBM.
Not IBM. But you know, it's really wonderful to see what artists can do when you give them, here's your blank canvas, your 3D blank canvas, you know, go for it. And seeing what people can come up with is just a great joy. And that's why I'm excited about Art Screamers and excited about all the people who are supporting big art builds, you know, including Linden Endowment for the Arts. They're doing some great stuff too.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. The I'm just trying to take a look here. I mean, we've covered a fair bit of ground. The I mean, the Art Screamer project. Are there any other projects that you've got coming up after Art Screamers?
No.
Or this is going to be the big project for the next year or so.
You know, that's going to be the big project for right now. You know, the thing that in writing for New World Notes for the 2 years that I did, I spent almost all my waking hours in world working. You know, either finding events, writing about events, TPing all over the place to photograph, and you know, I spent so much time working that I really lost some of my joy in Second Life, and so that was one of the reasons that I stopped, and I've really not missed working so much. And so the thing about Art Screamers is it's a project with friends, and it's fun, and that's really where I want to spend my Second Life right now, is having fun.
Very cool. And you're saying that that's probably going to open up at the end of July or the beginning of August?
That's what we're targeting right now, end of the month.
Very cool.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
If you had a crystal ball, and I know you said that you're not necessarily one into seeing what the future is going to look like, but I'm going to throw you on the spot anyways here.
Go for it.
Go for it. What, you know, if you could look, you know, 10 years into the future, where do you think we're headed with all of this virtual world nonsense?
Well, of course, I'm going to preface what I'm about to say with who the hell knows. But I think, you know what, I mean, how about if I say what I would like to see instead of what I think we'll see. I mean, I'd love to see lots and lots of grids, and I'd love to see, you know, grids that specialize in all the different things that people are interested in, from art and education to business to whatever it is. And I'd love for there to be a connection so that people can move from place to place with their shoes and their hair and their animation override, and so that we're not in the quote unquote walled garden, and we'll be members of the metaverse and the hypergrid, and we can go from place to place and do whatever it is our creative muse directs us to do. That's where I'd like it to be. I don't necessarily want a 3D Walmart where I can walk through the store, though. I know people people were talking about virtual worlds as being the future of the internet, and I don't know, if I need a 3D Amazon.com, but I would like to see virtual worlds as a means to support creative endeavors and business and education grow and expand as much as we can.
Very cool. Very good. Well, listen, I'd like to thank you very much for being available to be on the show today. I mean, it's been wonderful having you on here.
Thanks. I apologize about the voice issues.
Oh, that's, it's technology, and it wouldn't be the internet if we didn't have some problems that were going on.
That's right.
But I think we kind of figured out how to get the volume to stay up a little bit. But certainly, if you're available to stay for a little while after we've tied up the credits, that would be great. And
sure.
I'm quite sure there's been a lot of comments made inside the local chat here. In terms of signing off, I need to say that's it from the Rockcliffe Rotunda. Inside the Avatar Studio is produced by Bevan Whitfield and Rockcliffe University Consortium. Technical production is by Robustus Hacks and Mel Burns in association with Metaverse TV. For more information on Inside the Avatar Studio, please check us out on the web at urockcliffe.com or subscribe to our Twitter or Facebook pages. Again, both at urockcliffe. So, thank you everybody very much, and we're going to wrap up the show at this point, and once the credits have finished, we'll carry on with Chestnut.
Thank you very much.